At the beginning of the series, I mean, obviously, Karen kind of started off, not necessarily a victim, but she needed a little bit of help. However, as it's kind of progressed, obviously she's finding her own footing now. Yeah. She's actually much more of a stronger person, kind of trying to investigate things on her own now. As we continue the season, are we going to see more of that growth? Or?
Well, I think Karen's kind of like a dog that's got a bone. You know, she's just not going to let go until she can affect some sort of change, until something happens. So, you know, clearly by episode 5, she hasn't solved it yet.
Right.
So yeah, you know, she's determined. For sure.
This is a very dark series, but characters like Foggy especially add a little bit of levity to the situation. Do you enjoy playing that, or would you rather him have a lot more darkness?
No, I do enjoy playing that. And you know, I think Foggy does have some things going on inside that, you know, he's also wrestling with. But yeah, no, it's a fun character, and you know, this show in particular was nice because he wasn't just that. When you're just, you know, the comic relief or whatever, it can be kind of boring to play that, you know, same thing over and over again. But you know, they brought a lot of depth to all these characters in this show, and so it was a fun character to play.
What is the feeling of knowing that people are gonna have the option to watch the entire show in one day? I mean, is that the ideal way to enjoy it, in your way, or you should take a break?
Well, for me personally, yes, because I have no patience whatsoever. But that's just my own personal. Yeah, I don't know. What about you?
I mean, I think you should stop to eat and use the bathroom. No,
or get Depends.
Or yeah, you know, whatever you gotta do. I don't know. I mean, I think it's kind of cool that you can pick. Also, like, if you don't have time right now, like, watch it in a couple months, you know, all the way through. You know, I don't know. Like, we were talking the other day with Charlie, he's like, I'm halfway through an episode of House of Cards, you know? That's kind of cool that you can kind of come in and out of it. It's just 13 hours of content that doesn't necessarily have to break at any point.
Right.
Can you talk about the relationship between, the chemistry between Karen and Foggy and Matt, and then working with Charlie, and how does that sort of work between the three of you guys, finding these characters and their relationship?
Sure. Well, I mean, we all hit it off pretty quick,
yeah.
I think.
I think a lot of it was luck, to be honest.
Yeah,
because we just sort of, I don't know, we all got along really
well. I know, you always come to it and you're always like, oh my God, please be nice people,
yeah.
You know, like, be supportive, nice people, and then when it turns out that
I'm sure you've had the same experience,
yeah.
Everyone has, where you meet someone and you're like, what planet are they living on? And do I really have to work with them for the next 6 months? But this one was lucky. We really just, you know, I don't think any of us had a lot of time to really get to know each other that well, but and you know, also they did a good job with the writing and the characters, and you know, these characters.
But an interesting thing, I think it's my fault, but we had to start with they had to start shooting the second episode mostly first before we shot the first episode. And I think it was because I was still coming from True Blood, and so there was a couple days overlap. And in a way, I think that really helped because we really started in the thick of things, where the relationships are established and we could just jump in, so that when we got back to the first episode, there's none of those scenes of like, okay, you should go first. You know? Like, you were kind of already settled in a little bit.
Yeah, that's true.
And when you guys get the roles, does Marvel send you like a Daredevil omnibus of comic books pages that you go through to kind of look for clues for your character, or do you guys just stick to the Daredevil scripts as opposed to, you know, combing the comic book lore for clues?
They didn't send me anything, did they send anything?
Well, I requested, they have like, what's it called? They have the online Marvel app where you can sort of access all that
digital
stuff. So
comics.
the digital comics. So they gave me a link to that, so I could go back and read whatever I wanted. It was only for a year. I'll have to pay for it from now on. But that was very helpful.
Does that help? Does it help inform your character?
For me, it did. Not because I'm trying to copy something that we did in the comic books, but I did want to make sure that she was sort of familiar and unique at the same time. You know, how can she feel like the Karen Page that the fans have come to know, but can I still surprise them? And in order to do that, I had to have some sense of where she came from.
Now, Deborah, earlier you were talking about how, you know, you're just coming off of True Blood, And, you know, when you knew that was coming to an end, and you'd obviously been on that for almost the entire series, I think, was another long-form TV series something that you were looking for, or did this sort of just happen to come up, or what was that transition like?
Yeah, it sort of just happened to come up, but I mean, it gave me pause for a second, not because there's anything wrong with doing a series, but like 7 years is a long time to be working on one project, and it does take out a lot of your time from being able to do other things like theater or film. And but as soon as I spoke with Jeff Loeb about what their plans were for Karen, I sort of had to do it. It was just kind of too cool to pass up. And I was a little sad about leaving Jessica behind and those characters in that world. You know, it is a grieving process. I was her for 7 years, and so I had hopes and dreams for her that are as strong as I have for myself. And letting that go was hard. You know, I'm stupid. I'm going off on a tangent, but like, Bill Compton was my dad, you know, and like, I'll never see him again, and that was hard. So I was really glad actually to go straight to something where I could immediately have best friends and a father figure in characters, you know, and it was a nice transition that sort of helped me through it.
By the same token, though, would you argue for even though they're long-form series, they're also short long-forms, because True Blood is like, what, was 10 episodes a season or something like that?
Yeah, 10
and this
to 12.
and this is 13, as opposed to a network series where you're looking at 22 episodes. Is it more, and these have like each season of True Blood was like sort of one complete story, and this, we haven't seen the whole thing, but this seems like it's the idea. Is that more satisfying in that sense to do these in these more compact type of television programs?
I mean, I think different stories are going to lend themselves to different storytelling tactics. So I think that's really the goal, is how do you match up the story with the best way to tell it. And I do think that at least in these two cases that True Blood and certainly Daredevil really suit this form of storytelling, especially since if you look at comic books, this is kind of the way these stories have always been presented to us, in these kind of installments of individual issues that form one story that's part of an even larger story. So it kind of works in the same way.
On a bit of a different track, Elden, every few years, talks of a new Mighty Ducks reboot, sequel, whatever come around.
I started that blog post, by the way.
I thought it might be you. But at any rate, if ever something like that would ever come around, I mean, do you enjoy, or would you even contemplate revisiting an old character that you've played before in the past, or
yeah, absolutely.
Moved on?
You know, it's funny. We just had like a reunion not too long ago. A bunch of us got together at Jordan's house. Jordan Kerner is the producer on the movies, and it was really great to see all of them. And those movies really sort of started my career. You know, where I was getting into doors that I couldn't get into before. So for that reason alone, I would always revisit it, you know what I mean? Because it's so special to me, and it's given me such a wonderful career and life and stuff. So people, they were talking about trying to figure out how to do another one, and, you know, trying to bring back some of the old characters. And so I would absolutely do it, especially because, you know, I still feel a real kinship with all those kids in that movie, you know what I mean? You know, I don't necessarily keep in touch with all of them every day, but there is a handful of them that are still, you know, really close to me, and, you know, we do talk on a regular basis and stuff, so I'd be in.
Do you get lifetime tickets to the Anaheim games?
Yeah, I wish. I wish. I think they invited me to the first one.
That was it.
Yeah, and they're
novelty thing. They're like, you're done.
Yeah, and now and then they also changed the name, right? Like they changed it to just Ducks. I think.
Ducks of Anaheim.
Yeah, something like that. So I don't know how much association they still have, but that would be cool.
Deborah, you had mentioned the feeling of loss you had when True Blood was over and moving on to something new. Now Karen, of course, loses her original job and is going to something new. Did that inform your performance at all in Daredevil?
Sure. I mean, she loses everything, not just like physically, like a job or things like literal things, but she was in a home where she thought she trusted people and she thought she was doing good work, and it turns out it's the opposite, and that she was part of a machine that was corrupted, and now people are trying to kill her. You know, like, it was that huge a betrayal. And I think that's a particularly difficult thing to move past, and something that I didn't experience from True Blood. Nobody tried to kill me after that. So it was good, because the harder the fall was on that side of it, the more she needs Matt and Foggy to be that surrogate family, that the people she can trust. And I like that it takes her a little time to trust them. Like, she doesn't hand everything all over right away. They have to sort of prove that they're trustworthy, because she's suffered a blow.
Also on a little bit of a kind of a different track. Right now, obviously, gender inequalities, what are the things that's really being brought to the public's attention, especially throughout Hollywood and in the entertainment industry? You play strong female characters. I mean, you've had that privilege. It's wonderful. Now, is that something that you actually seek out, or are you starting to see more roles open up that are actually these strong female characters?
It's probably both. I mean, one, I won't do a role that I feel is limiting to women.
Okay.
But on the other hand, also sometimes some roles have the potential to be really great. You just have to kind of be like, can I try this thing? You know, and it's not that they're against that, it's just that maybe whoever was working on it hadn't quite thought of it that way. So yeah, I mean, I've had the privilege to work on some really interesting, you know, women, and particularly with Jessica from like girl to woman, which is kind of cool. So yeah, I mean, this, you know, when I was first thinking about doing this, I was definitely like, oh God, is it just the girl, you know? And again, after talking to Jeff, I knew there was something more there. And anything that I threw at them, anything where I was like, you know, maybe it'd be cool if this doesn't scare her, maybe it kind of excites her a little bit, you know, and they were really open to things like that.
And for both of you, you're definitely part of like this team now. I would say that Foggy's kind of like this public face, and you're almost kind of like a researcher, because your character story kind of mirrors a lot of like stuff that's happening in the real life with people who find out information that is really sensitive. What was it like to sort of flesh out these characters and make them, you know, a component to this team, and sort of like their traits? And
I just talked. You can talk.
It was a pleasure. I mean, you know, the playing to work with this group of people, you know, from top to bottom. You know, not just the other actors, but everyone on the crew was an incredible experience. You know, it probably isn't the answer that you want to hear, but like, honestly, I just try not to get fired. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm doing, man. I'm just like, you know, for me, there's not a lot of. You know, I don't have a lot coming in, you know what I mean? I sort of try to do whatever I can with what's presented to me, you know what I mean? And yeah, I just try not to get fired.
I guess for Karen, I thought a little bit about this idea of like the whistleblower. Like, we're in this weird world right now where that's kind of happening here and there. You keep hearing stories, and it's sort of topical at the moment. And the kind of the struggle of that. I mean, are you really going to take down people who you thought were your friends, but then they betrayed you? And that's a very delicate, scary place to be. And I think once she decides to commit to that, then yes, she has to play that role. She has to play the role of the person who's not going to give up, and you know, isn't gonna let scare tactics take her down.
Was the casting process long, or did you guys already know that you were going to do
Dude, I had the weirdest casting process. I was in Berlin. I was finishing the Hunger Games movies, and I had to do a screen test over Skype. I couldn't get it to work on my computer, so I was doing it on my phone, and the sound was bad. Everyone I knew decided to call me right then and there, and like, I don't even think we got through one scene like without it, like the sound dropping out or whatever, and I just thought, man, I'm never gonna get this job, you know. But like, now that I think about it in retrospect, I think maybe it helped me in some way, because maybe I was like, the more and more I was getting flustered and like pulling my hair out, they were probably like, that's him. So yeah, it was a weird, you know, it was a weird process, and I couldn't say anything. That was the weirdest thing. Like, after I got the job, I thought, oh, I'm not gonna get this job, because it was 2 weeks or something later when I heard. But then when I heard, they were like, and you can't tell anybody. So, you know what I mean? I'll be like all day on set, like just ear to ear grin, being like, yeah. Like, what's going on? You're like, nothing. Nothing. God, I don't want to tell you, but I can't.
What was Foggy's nickname that his like ex gave him?
Drop it.
Foggy Bear.
Karen Bear. What about Karen Bear?
Karen Bear.
Care Bear.
We still
Karen
like
Bear.
Senior Foggy Law.
Senior Foggy.
Senior Foggy
Senior Foggy
Law
Law was the good one.
is our best. Thanks.